Welcome back. Whether it's for the now so that elections can hold or for later to prevent further loss of life and property, terror groups must be stopped and put under control of a sovereign state. While exploring the possibility of a dialogue, Boko Haram has made some incredible demands. What other options can be examined and where do we go from here when the fight is over? These are questions and more for our guest on the program, Ambassador Joe Keshi. Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us on Diplomatic Channel.
Thank you for having me here again.
Let's begin with the latest. Boko Haram pledging allegiance to ISIS. How significant is this, and what impact do you think it will have on the war against insurgency in Nigeria?
I'm not sure it will have any impact to start with, number one. Number two, I just think it shows you the emptiness of Boko Haram, Why would you, for example, choose a time like this when the whole world is against one organization to align yourself with that organization? Ideologically, I'm not even sure that they are close. The ISIS, I'm not sure they are interested in Africa, talk less of Nigeria. And the fact that they have their own ambition and plans for some areas of the Middle East, which is of no interest to us. And I'm not sure Nigeria is of interest to them. So why would you at this time? It is possible that at this point in time, which is what I believe they've been doing, again, they want to gain some publicity. And all you need to do is find a way of gaining that publicity and world attention. Immediately that video was out, the news was on CNN, BBC, and the rest, that they have aligned themselves, Look, if a group in Syria says it's aligning itself with ISIS, it's more worrisome. Or if a group in Iran, Iraq, or any of these places, it's more worrisome than a group far away in Nigeria, irrespective of the fact that they're possibly Muslims.
You don't think there's a possibility that Boko Haram might be the means by which ISIS expands its activities to Africa?
Look, ISIS has a limited objection, or you can actually say broad objection, to create a caliphate in some parts of the Middle East. It does not include Africa, it talks less of Nigeria. So why would ISIS want to expand? To do what? Look, I've always said, and I keep saying, the Boko Haram crisis is Nigerian generated, and the solution will be here in Nigeria. The international connection with our neighbors is something, you will expect that once there's a crisis in one country, invariably there is a link, with your neighboring countries, which is why at any given time, countries endeavor to maintain very good relationship with its neighbors.
Okay, well, it's interesting you should mention the link, because Boko Haram has been known to clone ISIS ever since last year, when it declared a caliphate in some parts of Syria and in some parts of Iraq. Boko Haram has also thought of doing the same thing. Cities and towns that is overrun in northeastern Nigeria, it has declared those places caliphates. When ISIS began releasing videos of beheadings, Boko Haram also began to do the same thing recently. You still don't think that there is a link between the two?
Remember when I was here the last time, actually pointed out, that was when they started putting on flags.
Yeah.
Actually pointed out that they are mimicking ISIS more or less. And for me, it's not because they have a close link. All I said at that time was they also watch television like we do. So they watch what ISIS is doing, and they simply repeat the same thing. They are trying to continuously gain international attention as a serious, group that is threatening, world peace. But I maintain that it's a local, more or less a local affair that has expanded, to neighboring countries. And I think the alliance between Nigeria, Cameroon, and Chad, Niger, to nip it in the bud is just the right way to go. And once they can clear that, we'll probably see the end of Boko Haram as we know it today in terms of a larger warfare. But continuous bombing here and there is something we probably will have to live with for a while.
And the Nigerian troops are working, side by side with troops from Chad, Niger, and Cameroon to fight Boko Haram. We've asked the question, why now?
Well, it's a good question. Why now? Two things. Number one is the fact that for a long time, the operational base was Nigeria, and it was difficult. It was difficult to really gain the attention of the neighboring countries to help us. And it was also difficult for our troops to go beyond the Nigerian borders to fight. But when they expanded the activities to these other countries, they invariably brought in these other countries, and feeling threatened, they have no choice but to join in. I think last time I was there, so I gave you the example of, what happened during the ECOMOG days when they were trying to get Ivory Coast in particular, to be interested in securing the border. And they were not interested, more because they felt it wasn't their concern, the war was not, theirs, But at the end of the day, some of the arms that could not flow into Liberia stayed in Ivory Coast, and was the arms that was used during the Ivorian Civil War. So these things do happen.
The Nigerian military has, been, I don't want to say influential in the postponement of the elections, but they've assured that within 6 weeks, and that's very quickly counting down to D-Day, that, this group will be submerged, they'll be killed, and we'll be able to hold elections. How possible is it to control a group such as Boko Haram within a short period of time like that?
Well, let's look at it this way. The problem of the Nigerian military when this whole thing started was the fact that they didn't have the right equipment to fight this kind of, urban guerrilla as it is. Now, the good news from all over the place is that they've acquired a new set of weaponry, and that has, increased their capacity to deal with the insurgency. And so far, they seem to be doing very well. There are speculations that, give or take, in the next 2 weeks, they might actually be able to clear Boko Haram away from a significant part of the areas.
And they've been making great progress.
And they've been making great progress. So I think we just have to be hopeful that by the time we get to, the last week before the election, they should have been able to clear Boko Haram out of, significant part of the northeast.
We're going to go now to the Middle East, where you have Israel and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who addressed the U.S. Congress last week. That invitation bypassed the White House. President Barack Obama, of course, said he would not even honor Mr. Netanyahu's visit, of course, because it was done without his knowledge. He came from the backyard, and he accepted, the offer to address the U.S. Congress. What does that say about the Israeli Prime Minister?
Well, I've always held the view that Netanyahu is the greatest threat to the peace in the Middle East, and because there's been no serious negotiation since he became prime minister. And I think what he wants is peace on his own terms. But that is impossible. As long as you have two people in a crisis, you must appreciate and learn how to give and take if you want peace. And as the American government, the president said quite clearly, there was nothing new in his speech, because it's something he's been saying, all over the years. And that's why it's very interesting when everybody involved says that they don't want to inject politics into it. They injected politics into it first of all, even by the invitation. The speaker says he wants to listen to Netanyahu's views. And I actually was surprised that that's the only reason why he was invited. Netanyahu has been saying the same thing he said at the floor of the,
to
the Israeli parliament for so many years. So there was really nothing significantly new in what he said. But look, everybody involved, they are all politicians. They were grandstanding. And I do not think that the relationship between Israel and America will break up or will be strained simply by the grandstanding of a few, politicians. So for me, I think, give or take, based on the outcome of the elections, we will see that, we just have to wait and see, based on the outcome of the election, the relationship will still grow stronger.
Is it possible that Israel can force, because it does look like the Israeli Prime Minister is trying to force the U.S. over Iran
On the
way?
question of negotiation, it will certainly not force the U.S. hands.
Okay.
What will affect the negotiation is if Iraq, refuses some of the proposals that has been made. And President Obama has made it clear that he will walk out of a bad deal. Now, I hear that the bone of contention is the 10 years grace, given that there will be no escalation towards the manufacture of nuclear weapons, Now, if that is acceptable and they can work some agreement around that, I think that will be acceptable to the United States, and it will be left to the President of the United States to sell it. And I have a strong feeling that if you have a new Prime Minister in Israel, they might be prepared to live with that. On the other hand, and here's the dicey part of it, if Netanyahu wins and he decides to go to the extreme and on his own alone attack Iran, because of the dynamics of the Jewish influence in the American politics, you will find that is where the U.S. hands will be twisted, because America will be forced, even against its, the better judgment of the administration, they will still be forced to support Israel.
Do you really think Iran is a threat to the U.S., a threat to Israel? And the threat to the U.S. Do you really think Iran is developing nuclear weapons?
Let's put it this way. Israel is a nuclear power.
Already.
Iran is trying to also become a nuclear power. Although it claims that its own nuclear program is for peaceful, usage. That's its own claim. But here's the take for me. Today, the nation of Israel is a state recognized by so many countries around the world. There's nobody that can annihilate or send out Israel from the map. That's taken, that's given. So, but it pays the hardliners in Israel to use this all the time that they are still under threat. In fact, there are many who believe even in Israel that Israel needs to get out of this siege mentality, believing that at any given time, there are countries wanting to wipe out Israel. Look, they've gone through 4 or 5 wars. No state in the Arab world has succeeded in denting the security. In fact, the Israelis have even taken more territories, which they are protecting, preserving till today. So the question of the fact that one single state can take out the nation of Israel, can destroy the nation of Israel. Look, it's good politics in Israel. But the reality is that, for me, what I've always said about the Middle East is that, look, everybody in the Middle East needs to sit down and come to their senses and begin to resolve, some of the intractable problems that has been there for centuries. Part of the instability we see in the world as a result of terror is because of the Middle East. And we need to find a way to help these people come to their senses and resolve it.
And this is where Diplomatic Channel ends this week. Your comments and questions are welcome. Please send them using the addresses on your screen. I am Amarat Shilbani. I'll see you next time.